Yeah. New parak, new Masechta Shekalim, Mishnah, Daf Beis. Be'echad ba'adar mashmim al Shekalim. Bezdin would make an announcement that you have to give the machzis a shekel for each household, every adult male. Also, valakloin. They would announce that if you had any hybrid vegetables or fruits in your gardens, you have to uproot it. And on the 15th of Adar, they would read Megillah Esther in cities that were surrounded by walls. Also, Masaknes Adrachim. They would begin to repair the roads. That's because it's in anticipation of the Aliyah L'Regel, and you needed to have good roads for people to come for Pesach. Vesarchovos, Vesmikvos Hamayim, the places that would store water, Boyson Kol Tzorchei Rabim, they would do all the community work. For example, Mitzaynim ala Kvaros, they would make sure that there were marks on graves so that Kohanim would be careful they would not become Tamei. The Yotzin af ala Klon, there were shluchim of Bezdin that were sent out to examine people's fields to make sure that the farmers had gotten rid of them, and if not, the shluchim would do that themselves. Lama b'echad b'adar, says the Gemara, why was this done the first Adar? Kidei she'avi Yisrael shekleim b'noso, so that the Klal Yisrael would bring the shkolim at the right time. V'titarim trumas alishka v'nachadosh b'zmana b'echad b'nis. The Beis Hamikdash would, from the first day of Nisan, that's when all the korbanei tzibur had to be bought from the new shkolim. So by the time the first of Adar rolled around, until 30 days, they knew that they would have new shkolim in the treasury. Umar Reb Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak explained, Trumas halishka ketchilasa, just like the beginning of the Mishkan was done on Echad B'Nisan, so too the beginning, the giving of the Machzis HaShekel, the Chesiv. That the Mishkan was erected on the first day of Nisan, the second year after they left Mitzrayim. The Tani Allah was learned there. That the Trumas Halishka was forever set as the date, because that was the date that the Mishkan was erected. Rav Tevi, Rav Yeshua B'Shem Kahana, Nemar Kan Chodshei. We have a hekesh. It says Chodshei Hashana. The Nemar Lahalan Chodshei. By the, it says this is going to be the first of the new moon. The first month of the year is always Nisan. So regarding the new shkolim, it's also would be counted only from the first of Nisan. Rav Yomi Shvak Rav Tevi Roisha de Masnisa of Amar Soifa. Rav Tevi, who quoted this Baraisa, you don't need the first part of the Baraisa is not critical, only the last part. That Dal Ken Kadatani. It's not like the original Baraisa was taught, but rather it's taught like this. Zos Olas Chodesh B'Chodshe Hashana. Zos Olas Chodesh B'Chodsho. They would bring a new korban every Rosh Chodesh. Now, if we're going to make the comparison we made before, maybe Yachol Yetorm B'Chol Chodesh B'Chodesh. Maybe the giving of the Machzis HaShekel wouldn't be done once a year. Maybe it would be done every month if you're learning it from Chodshe Hashana. Talmud Lomer B'Chodsho L'Chodshe Hashana. Chodesh Echad U'Torm L'Chol Chodshe Hashana. You only donate the Trumas Halishka on the month, which is considered the first month of the year, which is Nisan. But I still might think maybe once a year, but you could choose the month. Over there, we only start counting from Nisan. Now, Mamashmi, what would they announce? Ravuna Omar Machrizin, they would, what do you mean? They would announce everyone is chayiv to bring a machzis hashekel. They would, like they made a proclamation, they made an announcement in Judea and Jerusalem. This is in Divrei Yomi. This is referring to the tax that Moshe Rabbeinu required the Klal Yisrael to bring. Tamon Tanina, we learn over there in the Mishnah, ain't ben Adar Arishon Adar Hasheni. Now, we know that 7 times out of every 19 years, the lunar cycle is a 19-year cycle, and 7 out of 19, there's a leap. We add a leap month in order to get back because months are either 29 or 30 days. It's like 29 and a half days. So from year to year, you're going to lose 6 days. In every 3 years, you're going to lose 18 days. It means to get a 354-day cycle, as opposed to the solar cycle, which is 365 days, 11 days. It's almost 30 days a year. Very soon, Pesach, what's supposed to be in the spring, is going to be deep in the winter. So they have to add a leap month, Adar, right? They need to add Adar Bays to keep Pesach in the spring, because the Torah uses the word Aviv, spring, for Pesach. Now, this Mishnah is going to tell us, Ein bein Adar Arishon Adar Hasheni, ela mikra Megillah Matanos Levyoy. The nafkamina would be in the 14th day of Adar. We don't read the Megillah. We don't give gifts to the poor in Adar Rishon. You only do it in Adar Beis. Rav Simon Bar Rav Shubin Levi, Av Shimur Shkolim V'Klein B'nei. They would also not announce on the Shkolim and the Kloim on Adar Rishon. They would do it on Adar Beis, because otherwise it's 60 days before Nisan, and people would be lax. You have to do it 30 days. Everyone reads Megillah on the 14th. That's the normal time of reading. Of course, we know there are other times. For example, if you live in a walled city, you would read it on the 15th. Rav Yossi, v'ya'us, and it's correct. Right? The whole reason why they wanted you to announce on the Shkolim is that people should bring it at the right time. If you announce it on the first day of Adar Rishon, there's going to be 60 days. And they'll forget to donate the machzis hashekel. Now, Rabbi Yossi adds, now, we said that the messengers of Bezdin would go out and describe and announce what kind of plants the farmers have to remove. And if they didn't, they'd have to do it themselves. And if you do this by Adar Rishon, since they've recently planted these things, they wouldn't even be able to recognize it. It had to be further on in the year. It had to be Adar Beis. Otherwise, nobody would recognize the plants and they would not know which to uproot. Rav Chizkiah asked the following question. What about the people who live in Bavel, where it takes months to travel to Shalim? So they should announce the Shkolim at the beginning of winter. Otherwise, the whole point was for Klal Yisrael to bring it at the right time. If you wait until Adar Aleph, in Bavel, it's not going to be the right time. It's going to take much longer. Also, the Brisa previously had said that and you're not going to get it there by Echad B'Nissen if you don't announce on the Shkalim in the wintertime. Hesiv Rabula Komi Rav Mana. Rav Ula asked the following question in front of Rav Mana. Vatanina. Didn't we also learn in a different mission, which we're going to learn later on, Bishlosha Prokim Bashana Toimus Alishka, that think about the money that was gathered, they would put it in a room. 3 times a year, they would sort of clean the room up with the money and purchase the various korbanos. They didn't do it all at one time. With Prosa Pesach, we'll see a couple of weeks before Pesach. With Prosa Atzeres, 2 weeks before Shavuos, with Prosa Chag. And why did they do this? Omer le'lo ne'emar ila dekravim with Prosa Pesach. For the people near Yerushalayim, they emptied and started buying the korbanos from this money 2 weeks before Pesach. Even der choikin, people who lived further away, like in Bavel, would do it b'prosat seres. Even der choikin, b'prosat chag. So there was always new. They would spend the money at different times, so that if you were from Bavel and you sent your shkalim, the echad ba'adar eventually would get there, so that by 2 weeks before Shavuos or 2 weeks before Sukkot, it would be fine. Rav Mana explained all the shkalim arrive at the same time. They arrive by the 1st of Nisan. In the opinion of Rav Chizkiah, who said that the people in Bavel send it even at the beginning of winter, it really should all arrive at the same time, Echad B'Nissen. The reason why they cleaned out the money 3 times a year, just again to publicize, because everyone showed up, Aliyas L'Regel on these times. So to remind everybody, make sure you have to donate your Machzis Hashem for the next year. Rabbi, hey, Nikra Veloni boys. The Psukim say we shouldn't be afraid of the Psukim. L'toiva. So the Gemara is not going to give us some quotes where, when Klal Yisrael were asked to do things, if they do it for good, they came quickly. But if they did it for bad, there was much more of a participation from Klal Yisrael for bad things. Where's this? Because when it says Klal Yisrael donated money to Beis HaMikdash, it says Kol Nadiv Lev, people who were generous. Yet, when they were going to build the Egel Hazav, the Ra, it says Vayisparku Kol Ha'om. It says all the people took off their jewelry, not just the generous people. So unfortunately, when it came to bad things, people came running. Another example, the Tova, Vayotzei Moshe Sa'am. That when they were at Har Sinai, Moshe Rabbeinu had to schlep the Klal Yisrael out to come to meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu by the Har Sinai. But L'Ra, when it talks about the Meraglim, and everybody wanted Meraglim, but I didn't have to bring the people. They came by themselves. But you came to me. Another example where for bad things, the people were more Zorius. Another example, Latova, Az Yashir Moshe of Israel. When they sang the Shira, when they crossed the Yam, they followed Moshe. But that means Moshe had to start singing, and then the Klal Yisrael followed. L'Ra is Vatisak Kol Ha'eda. It is when the Meraglim came back and told a bad story, they all started crying. And they did it by themselves. They didn't need Moshe to start. Even the Nevi'im note that Klal Yisrael have a greater propensity to do bad. It says they all woke up early and they began doing bad things. This is in the Novi Tzefanya. Whenever they would do something evil, they would wake up early to do it. As opposed to Zrizin, who mashkimim lemitzvos, it's only the few who are careful about mitzvahs. You cannot really assess the attributes of this nation. These born la'egel v'noisnim, these born la'mishkan v'noisnim. When they went around collecting for the egel azov, people gave. But later on, as a kapara, when Hashem told them, "Vayitnu li truma," give me gifts, so I can build a mishkan, they gave as well. So they're neither here nor there. They made the covering of the aron out of gold. Part of the purpose of that kli was let the gold of the covering of the aron be mechaper, atone for the avera of Egel. Rav Chagi b'shem Rav Shmuel bar Nachman. We're back to the basic issue of the shkolim. Sholosh trumas never parsha zos. There were three collections made when they built the Mishkan. Trumas Adonim. The Adonim are the sockets that the Mishkan's wooden walls had, like a male and female, like there was a male piece of wood at the bottom of each thing that fitted into a female opening. That was the socket. So there was a special collection made for the Adonim, with Trumas Shkolim, and it was the giving of the Machzis HaShekel, with Trumas HaMishkan. And then there was a Truma, when it says Vaychuli Truma, Dabel Bnei Yisrael Vaychuli Truma. When that basic collection is Zu Trumas Adonim, that's the gifts that were given to make the sockets. Take it from each person, Zu Trumas Shkolim. That's the giving of the Machzis HaShekel. There's also Truma Shetichumi Tam Zu Trumas HaMishkan. That's all the other things they collected in order to build the Mishkan. Trumas HaMishkan is LaMishkan. There, they could do whatever they needed to build the Mishkan. Mashu Yirtzu Yasu. Trumas Shkolim LaKorban. But the Machzis HaShekel couldn't be used for whatever they wanted. It had to be used just to buy korbanos. Mashu Yirtzu Yasu Kadeshi Yad Kulon Shava. In order for every person in Klal Yisrael to have a share in the korbanei tzibur. What's the Trumas Ladonim? There was also given the same amount, also used for the sockets that were made. Ernie,
what was the significant about the sockets that they had a separate donation for it?
I guess because it's like the base.
The foundation,
it's like a foundation, exactly. And
but what would that be
they
included with a?
They were made out of silver, so they needed the silver to make it. They actually,
what do you think?
You understand? They didn't use this silver that they donated was actually fashioned into these sockets. The other Machzis HaShekel was used to buy korbanos from people who sold animals.
And the rest of the ones for the Mishkan, could that not be included in that?
The other donation, which we said was for the Mishkan. So remember, there are people donated wool, they donated gold, right? Machzis HaShekel was silver. So each one of these three had sort of different purposes. Amravavin, Alpha Parsha Zois Nemer Bashalish Trumais. Machzis HaShekel Truma Lashem, Yitain Trumas Hashem, Losesis Trumas Hashem. Ravavin points out that these three mentionings of the different three Trumas are mentioned in these other psukim. Okay. Then it says, B'tes vav bokar Megillah b'krach. The Mishnah said that we read the Megillah in a walled city on Tesvav. Lo chen Rav Chelbo, Ravuna Rav Mishum Rav Chia Rav. Kol yotzim ba'arbos or shuzman kriyaso. I thought later on we said that everybody read it on the 14th. So lo bo el olam that shekol hamitzvos n'agas badar sheni ein n'agas badar rishon. Ein chanami. It's two different things. Everybody read the Megillah on the 14th, except for people who lived in big cities. And why mention it like this? To say that all the mitzvahs that are noeg in Adar Sheni are not noeg in Adar Rishon. Rabbi Yosef Ravacha have a Yosef. Rabbi Yosef Ravacha were sitting. Rabbi Yosef Ravacha. Lo mistabra ela l'shavar. The people in the walled city, let's say they're sitting on the 14th, they know that they're going to read the Megillah in the future on the 15th, but they don't have a choice. People who live in a walled city cannot read it on the 14th. They must read it on the 14th. But they raise the following problem. In the place where there was a minute to read it in 2 days, which means the 14th and the 15th, you could do it. Rabbi Yosef said as well that if the people in a walled city had read the Megillah on the 14th, they should repeat it and read it on the 15th. On Rav Mana v'Yeyus, and it's correct. If somebody in a walled city had read it on the 14th, they have to they have to do it again and read it on the 15th. Shema ain't shamilo. Because if you allow them to do that, they're going to forget the proper time for people in a walled city to read Megillah, which is the 15th. Tani, mitzvahs and August Badar Sheni and August Barisha. The mitzvahs Matanis Lavyoni Mikra Megillah that are done Badar Sheni are not done in the first. Chutz mehesped v'tani shein shavim b'zeh. However, on the 14th and 15th day of Adar Rishon, you can't make a hesped, or you can't fast, even on Adar Aleph. Rav Ba, Rav Yirmiyah, B'Shem Rav Simon, B'Shem Rav Shubin Levi, halacha Rav Shimon Gamliel. That's the halacha. Ravuna Rabbi de Tzipori in Amar. Ravuna, who was the Rav of Tzipori, said, Hinig Rav Chanina Tzipori Kadi Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Chanina of Tzipori practiced the halacha of Shimon Gamliel. Lo Amar Hinig, aval halacha lo. He noticed he followed this minig, but he didn't say that it's absolutely the halacha. Aval le'inyan shtar is question Adar Rishon, the Adar Sheni stop. When you write a star, so you write Adar Rishon, and if it's Adar Sheni, you just write Adar. Right? The Indian starts question Adar Rishon, the Adar Sheni stop. But Rav Yosi Oimer, Adar Rishon stam, Adar Sheni Tanina. That he holds the opposite. That when you refer to Adar Rishon, you just say Adar. And if you refer to Adar Sheni, you write Adar Sheni. The halacha is, you write Adar Rishon. And then this is if you write a star, a get. Right, Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni. Depends on which month you're in.
You would think the opposite.
Adar, if you only wrote Adar instead of Adar Rishon, the get's still good. But if he writes Adar alone and not Adar Sheni, the get's not good.
Yeah, you would think that if you just write Adar, it would really be the first Adar, and then you would have to put Adar Sheni, not the other way around.
In fact,
logically.
So if he wrote Adar by itself,
yeah.
Let's say.
If it's not a leap year,
he's supposed to write Adar Rishon. Let's say he writes Adar. He's supposed to write Adar Rishon. He only wrote Adar. The get's okay. But if it's Adar Sheni and he writes Adar, then it's not good.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
the way you were saying,
All
Johnny?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Shkoyach,
Yeshua Koyach,
8:15 tonight.
8:15 tonight, you should go.
Okay. Go ahead.